Show the West some love. Carney makes an overture to the prairies. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
For weeks now, there have been news stories about anger in the West. There have been warnings from people like the founder of the Reform Party, Preston Manning, that a Liberal victory in the election would add fuel to the fire of the Western separation movement. And within the last week, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announced her government will make it easier for Albertans to put a sovereignty referendum to voters. With all of that as a backdrop, Mark Carney has announced he will meet with the premiers on June 2nd, but not in Ottawa, rather in Saskatoon. And that's a smart move, according to Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
It's a good olive branch and had a good discussion. So I'm a big believer of pipelines, big believer of getting rid of C-69. And we need to unite this country. And the way we're going to unite this country, as I mentioned to the Prime Minister in front of the premiers, show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And let's start diversifying our trade when it comes to oil. Let's start building pipelines west, east, north, and yes, south as well. But they're getting a discount, by the way. We ship them $100 million worth of oil. They turn it into $300 million and ship it out. I think the number, we're giving them a discount of 20%. Well, let's start shipping it out.
Ford made those remarks after Prime Minister Carney hosted a virtual meeting with all the premiers. The Prime Minister didn't take any questions, but Premier Ford went on to say, Ottawa can't keep ignoring Western Canada.
United we stand, divided we fall, and that was my message today. And let's continue making sure that we unite the country, not divide the country. And I spoke pretty strongly in support of Alberta and Saskatchewan. Because they've been ignored for the last 10 years. They've been treated terribly, to be very frank. And I think the new Prime Minister Carney, understands that. And he's going to be out there having great conversations. And just that one move, bringing FMM out to Saskatchewan, that's a big move.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has maintained she doesn't support Alberta leaving Canada. And she has also said her party, the United Conservative Party, does not support Alberta separation. She says her decision to lower the requirements for a citizen-led initiative comes from her party's support for direct democracy.
Do you have the mandate to open such a door to Alberta separating from the rest of Canada?
Yeah, I don't have a mandate, and my party doesn't support that. My party quite clearly in their founding documents came together and they support a strong, united Canada, protecting constitutional sovereignty, and that's what I've been doing. A citizen-initiated referenda would be, by definition, initiated by citizens. And so I won't prejudge what issues citizens might want to put on the table, but that is up to citizens to decide and to get the number of signatures. All I've said is I will honor the process. And the public very clearly knows that we are a party of direct democracy, that we do believe in things like citizen initiative and recall that happened under my predecessor. And so I would leave it to the people, but that's why I have been pretty clear that I do not support separatism myself. I support a strong, sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and that's what I'll keep working towards.
Which is not to say, according to Premier Smith, Albertans don't have big issues with the way they're treated by Ottawa.
All there is a process, and I think we have to accept that there's a lot of anger out there. A lot of anger after the last election, a lot of anger at the way we've been treated for the last 10 years. And there's a lot of groups that are organizing to try to do something about it. We may disagree about what the path forward is. All I can tell you is my path forward is to try to do whatever I can to try to get a fair deal for Alberta. And that's why I've already engaged constructively with the Prime Minister on that.
The idea of Alberta leaving Canada has sparked a firestorm of protests from First Nations leaders in that province. Alan Adam is the chief of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation.
We are uncertain of Alberta's path, and we as treaty people were obligated by the Crown, and we are Canadians. And we're standing up for Canadians to honor the Crown. And that we can't allow the resources to continue to be developed through exploration. Those all have to stop because Alberta wants to separate and are no longer want to be part of Canada. So we as First Nations people are saying that if Alberta wants to separate and doesn't want to be part of Canada, then you're not allowed on our traditional territories anymore for exploration because we don't know who you're explorating for.
Premier Smith has said that any referendum on Alberta's future must respect the constitutional rights and treaties of Indigenous people. She has called that non-negotiable. Then there's Quebec, which has held two referendums on sovereignty, one in 1980 and again in 1995. Earlier in the week, the leader of the Parti Québécois in Quebec praised Premier Smith for standing up for her province. But the PQ's federal cousins in Ottawa, the Bloc Québécois, isn't so supportive. In fact, yesterday, Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet threw insults Alberta's way and said he'd rather Quebec left first.
Our success so far does not place me in a position to give them tips about what to do, but I could give them tips about what not to do. Not now. The first idea is to define oneself as a nation. Therefore, it requires a culture of their own. And I am not certain that oil and gas qualify to define a culture. But it's theirs to decide if they want to vindicate the right to self-determination. I would never interfere in that. It belongs to them. I would like us to be the first.
A new poll from Nanos Research suggests that a majority, 64% of Albertans, believe that Alberta being part of Canada would be the best option for creating a strong economy in Alberta in the long run. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
We are here with our friend on the right side of things, Michael Taube, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. How are you today?
I'm good, Rob. How are you doing today?
You always seem to join us during breaking news, and there is breaking news. Yeah, it's very exciting. White smoke has risen above the Sistine Chapel in Rome at the Vatican, and that signals, of course, that the Cardinals have chosen a new pope on this, the second day of the conclave. So we are just waiting for his identity, his name he will take as pontiff, and that will be revealed soon. But the bells of St. Peter's Basilica ringing to welcome the news that the new pope has been elected. The crowd in the Vatican's main square bursting into applause as the white smoke began to pour out of the chimney. So we'll see who it is in probably a few hours or so. Very exciting, Mike. Always exciting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Within a couple hours. No, I've actually written many times in the past on various popes, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Francis, etc. I've done a lot of work on that, even though I'm obviously not a Catholic. My wife is, but I've always had a strong interest in Christianity, just more from a historical and a personal outlook on life. But regardless, it's obviously an extremely important moment. It's obviously a historical moment for the Roman Catholic Church. This is probably the most viewed and watched and certainly papal conclave I've ever seen before. I mean, obviously the advent of social media and the fact that many news networks, including EWTN, CNN, Fox News, and others, are just following this with every heartbeat. It actually it's a good and a bad thing when you look at it, but overall I think it should be looked as positive. It'll be very interesting to see who they pick, because now the question is whether the Roman Catholic Church will choose for the next pope or bishop of Rome, if you like, whether it'll be another moderate similar to Pope Francis, or if they'll move back to a more conservative-leaning pope, and we'll see.
Yes. So we'll have more details on that during our next newscast at the bottom of the hour here on Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow, and Michael has known Danielle Smith for a long time. They've moved in conservative political circles for a long time, 25 years or so, you've said in the past.
Yeah, more than that. Yeah, but that's right. But 25 plus, yeah.
So what is she up to? What do you think of her decision to make it easier for Albertans to launch a sovereignty referendum?
Well, look, and you could also use Scott Moe in Saskatchewan as well, who's not intervening in any discussion that way. I think it's reality. I'm not saying that this is a positive development in the history of Canada, but these are movements that have existed for some time. And while some people say, well, you just quell them, you bring it down, you don't discuss it. Unfortunately, it's now something that, for better or worse, you have to bring out in the open and let them discuss it and figure things out. And the best thing for a premier to do in a Western province, and if we're going to just use, obviously, Danielle Smith of Alberta as one, the best thing to do is certainly to make comments, interject, participate if you wish, or stay out if you wish, but you have to let the process go through and see what happens. Because in the end, I mean, whether you like it or not, if you believe in democracy and you believe that people should have a say in not only the way a country operates, but in Canada, how the province should operate, I understand your position. It's not anything that any premier would necessarily go out and say, oh, great, this is exactly what I was hoping for. But they know that these movements have existed for some period of time. And one way or the other, the good, the bad, and the ugly has to be discussed in some fashion.
She's made a list of demands to Ottawa. You have to do this, Bill C-69, C-48. You have to get rid of clean electricity regulations and the EV sales mandate, oil and gas emissions, all of these things. What do you think about presenting a list of demands to the new prime minister? Do this.
Well, so what? Ontario Premier Doug Ford has done the same thing. He has five points of his list of demands for Mark Carney to work on. It doesn't surprise me. This is the way premiers operate. And the only way that you can work properly today with any prime minister, whether it's a liberal or conservative or otherwise, is you have to basically state what are the needs, ideas, demands, what have you, of my province, and how can we coordinate things with the federal government in Ottawa to ensure that all or most of them get through. So it doesn't bother me at all. I would expect that of any premier, whether he or she is left, right, or center.
Okay. Could you see a time that Alberta actually votes for this separation?
I have thought about it over the years, and I've obviously tackled it in pieces, even, my early days when I was just writing op-eds in the late 90s before I became a columnist for a number of papers. I think that I certainly at least touched upon it, if not did a deep dive. It would be hard to believe, let me put it to you that way. I think there's enough people who are frustrated with the way things are running, and there's certainly a lot of Albertans who are frustrated with the fact that Eastern Canada, especially Quebec, in their mind gets a lot of benefits, a lot of free rides, a lot of money, and a lot of attention, more so than them. But again, this is a frustration that's not just held by the Western provinces. Lots of provinces have held it. We've had moments where Ontario, not in terms of separation, but has been frustrated with what they believe is the lack of attention or response from the federal government to their needs. So could I see it happening? I mean, you never say never in life because anything can happen. It seems unlikely that Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, or any other province, including Ontario, would separate, but it depends on the conditions. And 4 straight Liberal governments, who are fairly left-leaning, is not to the benefit of a lot of provinces, especially something like Alberta and Danielle Smith, which is a mostly, not perfectly, but mostly right-of-center province.
Sure.
It's a hard road to hoe.
We'll be right back with syndicated columnist, the speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Michael Taube, with us every week here on Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here is syndicated columnist Michael Taube, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And again, our breaking news, more details to come during our bottom hour newscast. White smoke rising above the Vatican, so they have chosen a new pope. The cardinals have chosen a new pope. This is the second day of the conflict. The conclave, pardon me, the conclave. We do not know. There may have been some conflict, but it was the conclave. No identity yet, or we don't know the name that this person will take on as pontiff. But again, this is the individual that will replace the now late Pope Francis. Pope Francis was elected on the conclave's second day, as was Benedict. John Paul II, who was the longest reigning pope of modern times, was selected on the third day back in 1978. Oh, so long ago, Michael. 1978.
It's true. It was a long time. I've seen 5 now in my lifetime. The past century, it should be noted, because I talked about the longest papal conclave that ever lasted, which was between 1268 to 1271, and lasted almost 3 years, 2 years and 9 months to be exact. The average has been for the past century, generally speaking, about just about 2 or 3 days and about 4 or 5 ballots. So this is about right. 4 ballots is what it took the new pope, who will be named shortly and will come out shortly, to be elected. And that matches, I believe, Pope Benedict XVI, if I'm not mistaken. And with Pope Francis, it took 5 ballots. So just 1 extra. But this is about the norm, 2 to 3 days.
Okay. We only have about 2 minutes left, but you are there in the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And the Maple Leafs are looking good. I have to give it to them. I'm not a Leaf fan. I don't think you're a Leaf fan either. You're a Kings fan, aren't you?
Middle of the road. Leafs.
Middle of the road.
Leafs are the only Toronto-based team of any sport that I follow. So I guess about half, if you want to say that.
But look, they look very good, I must say.
Yeah, they do.
What is the buzz like in Toronto? Does Toronto have Leafs fever right now? You're seeing a lot of people wearing Leafs jerseys or flags on cars. Give us a sense of that.
There's a bit. It is starting. I think a lot of people actually sense that after getting off to a 3-0 lead against, your Ottawa Senators and then ending it in 6, and it was a tight series, a lot of people wondered, going in against the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions, who, yes, had a record that they had less points overall than the Leafs did during the regular season, but as you, I, and most of the listeners know, it doesn't matter. It's all how you do in the playoffs. The Panthers had looked much stronger against the Tampa Bay Lightning and had beaten the Bolts in 5 games. You would have thought the Panthers were the tougher of the 2 teams. But look, to the Leafs' credit, they've won 2 games at home, both by 1 goal, but they've taken the lead. If they can sneak out 1 game in Florida, the advantage is heavily on their side, like it was against Ottawa in the first round. So Leafs fever hasn't started yet, but it's getting there, and I'm sure we'll see more sweatshirts, more flags, more things related to Toronto.
Okay. Great to hear from you today, Mike. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Have a good week.
Yeah, that's Michael Taube, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, one of our weekly contributors here on Now You Know. Our Newsday panel is coming up next.
The Newsday panel.
It is time for our Newsday panel. Tim Powers is with us, chair of Summa Strategies. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm just great. Great to hear from you, along with Chris Day, Senior Vice President at Hill & Knowlton. How are you, Chris Day?
Very well. Hello to you both.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Let's start with you, Chris. What did you think about Mark Carney's first meeting with Donald Trump this week?
Well, I thought Mr. Carney did pretty well. I mean, there was no Zelensky moment, which is great, but also no breakthrough. So, solid pass. One thing that has really struck me in the coverage of this, though, is just how remarkable it is that we are at a point in the relationship between our 2 countries where we find it remarkable that the 2 leaders can have a polite conversation, and that's, I guess, that's a huge sigh of relief, right? So it'd be really interesting to see what comes of that conversation. I know a lot of people are looking at the U.S. and U.K. free trade deal that's being announced today as potentially signaling signs of things to come for whatever a free trade agreement might look like between Canada and the U.S. But first test passed. Good on you. And now let's see what meat comes of that.
Okay. What did you think, Tim?
Yeah, I fully agree with Chris. And what I would add in terms of context, Rob, so it's not Pete and repeat, and we have more insight on the panel is I was lucky enough yesterday to be in Washington after the Prime Minister's visit and ended up doing something with the American Enterprise Institute, which probably closer aligned to the right than the left, and even there in a panel that looked at the post-election, most everybody was giving Mark Carney strong pass marks on how he dealt with Trump, because as Chris alluded to, so much of it now is, do you get Zelensky'd or not, or not? And the fact that didn't happen, and the fact that Carney was cleverly able, I thought, in a couple of occasions to make some points about Canada was good. I think the most interesting thing for me being in Washington yesterday was to have it driven home by a couple of longtime Republicans who aren't necessarily Trump-aligned, but that they really believe, at least the people I was talking to yesterday, that this isn't just some passing fad with Trump, that he really does think that he has to fix the trade imbalance as he sees it, despite his facts and figures being wrong. And unless Canada is prepared to do something in the agricultural sectors, the cultural sectors, on defense, and around minerals and resources, that it's going to be tough to get a good deal. But anyway, that was the take from Washington, where Carney did score well.
Okay. Well, let's play one of the more interesting parts of the public portion of this meeting, which was more like a Donald Trump news conference with Mark Carney doing a lot of looking on at times. But look, he had to be prepped for this. You knew the 51st state stuff was going to come up. And, Donald Trump was asked about that with Mark Carney sitting right there. And then Mark Carney weighed in with this.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
Chris Day, what did you think about how he handled that particular part of the news conference?
So I think he was briefed as part of his many briefings for that encounter on how to deal with a narcissist, because what a way to string along someone, right, using their own background, their own experience to agree with you, and Canada is one of those places that's never for sale, and he did come back with a sort of tepid, never say never type of thing. But, it really showed, I think, that we are in a place where we are dealing with someone who needs to be, treated in unlike any other president ever. And we have to get our heads around how to do that. And I thought that Mr. Carney did pretty well in that yesterday.
Tim, what'd you think?
Yeah, look, again, I think he, as some described it, was the adult in the room. And I think he managed the tricky balance of, being able to deal with Trump and at the same time making sure the Canadian audience felt that he represented Canada well. And I thought he did that. The for sale, not for sale line was good. Kananaskis in June is going to be fascinating to see if the relationship continues, because as we've seen with Trump, it can be great one day and bad the next. Yes. Perhaps sorry, Rob, I know you want to go to break that. I would say the greatest testament to the fact that Carney probably had a good day, at least from the White House's perspective, which is important, was that sizzle reel they put out later in the day.
That's right.
That, as others have described, looked like some kind of Netflix preview.
Okay, we'll be right back. Let's turn our attention to the Conservative Party, and they had a meeting a couple of days ago on Parliament Hill to do what I call the autopsy, to go over the election loss, what went wrong, where do things go from here. We know Mr. Poilievre doesn't appear to be going anywhere for now. Mr. Scheer is going to lead the Conservatives in the House. They promise they will listen. They promise they will learn. And even Mr. Poilievre says he needs to learn and grow. Perhaps some might say grow up. Tim, you had a column in the Hill Times this week saying the party needs nuanced reflection. What does that mean?
The headline
Nuanced
writers said the party needs nuanced reflection. I didn't think I was as nuanced as the headline says, but look, what I said, and Chris will remember this. Pierre and his team need to do almost what Stephen Harper and his team did after the 2004 election campaign. It wasn't a quick passing autopsy. Stephen Harper was pretty down that summer about losing, as you would expect, because if you remember at the time, though he didn't get 41% of the vote going into that last weekend, it looked like he could win, and then there was a few things that happened that undid that, and Mr. Martin won. So he hauled everything apart in that summer. He looked at everything that happened in the election. He looked at the things they had right and wrong going into the 2004 campaign, and he made major changes. Now, whether Pierre Poilievre makes major changes or not, I think he has to make some. They have to go through that process. It can't just be, and it's not going to be, one caucus meeting where they say, oh, yeah, this was good, and we got this great coalition, and we'll just wait 4 years. If that's the thinking, Conservative Party's in big trouble. The other thing the only point I'd quickly make, Rob, is that, look, approach, burning bridges for the sake of burning bridges, having a certitude about it, and purity are all things they got to get rid of.
Yeah, I may want to ask you a little bit more about that ideological purity, conservative purity, if you will. But what do you think about Tim's analysis, Chris? Kind of taking a real deep dive on this. That one meeting is not going to do it here.
Well, and I think, party members will expect them to do it over time. Like the first, there was a start of a process, not the end of it for sure. They do need to realize and look at them, deep into the mechanics of a campaign. Where it worked, where it didn't, what changes need to be made. To Tim's point earlier, Mr. Harper made significant changes following that loss in 2004. And, this was, I think, for many people, a race that was winnable in the way that 2004 could have been won and 2006 was. And, if you look at the changes that were made in and around the 04 to 06 period, I would argue that those were the changes that ultimately allowed the Conservatives to be elected in 06. And then grow throughout the course of the lifetime of the Harper government to a larger minority and then a majority, which is not usually the way that works. Usually it's, you lose support the longer you're in office, right? So if Pierre does this properly, Pierre and team do this properly, they can maintain the confidence of caucus, which has retained its Reform Act powers, and maintain that coalition that they have very ably built over the last little while. Against a prime minister who is very different than Justin Trudeau and will make different mistakes than Justin Trudeau did, and hold him and the government to account as an opposition should.
So, Tim, just to build on your idea, drop the purity test. I'm thinking about what Tim Houston said after the election when he was asked about reports of bad blood between Poilievre's people and his people, a rift there. He said there are many shades of blue. Would that be one of your recommendations to the federal Conservatives, understanding that there are, quote unquote, many shades of blue?
Yeah, exactly. And why are you trying to put people offside? And they do have a bit of a threat to some shades of blue, because I think, you could argue Mark Carney is more like a progressive conservative leader at the moment than he is your traditional liberal leader, although he's more, he fits, they're good at going back and forth. But you can't build any organization, be it the Conservative Party or others, and simply exclude people because they don't share your rigidity of ideological thought. That's what got Conservatives blown apart in the first place. That's why, you had 4 or 5 factions that existed before. Chris used to work for a guy, John Baird, who was a perfect example of that. John, as a leader, as a cabinet minister, he welcomed everybody. He came from the Ontario Conservative Party, but he was popular with progressives. progressive conservatives. He was popular with Alliance members because he treated them with respect and listened to them.
Yeah, people might even be surprised he even had respect from Liberals and New Democrats.
He did.
Despite his attack dog persona in the House of Commons. But would you agree with that, Chris? Being more
I think,
ideologically open to other shades of blue?
The Federal Conservative Party needs to listen to people across the country, including and perhaps especially to people who've won giant majorities in their respective provinces. And, whether or not that's listening to different shades of blue, I don't know. But that is absolutely respecting the fact that there are very real regional realities in this country. And frankly, the change of leadership in the Liberal Party requires the Conservatives to look at what they're going after, because, it will be a very different issue set potentially if Mark Carney maintains that sort of progressive conservative or, purple liberal type of approach, or if he ends up being just a new head on a rotting corpse. So,
we'll be right back.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Tim Powers and Chris Day on our Newsday panel. I was just thinking as I have CNN on here and they have the view of the balcony and everybody is waiting for the Pope. I'm really, really jealous of Joyce Napier right now. Joyce Napier. The longtime television journalist for Canada, for CTV News forever, was appointed Canada's ambassador to the Holy See like a year ago. Like, what a sweet gig that would be right now, to watch history in the making right now.
Rob, both Chris and I promise if we're ever in a position to make you an ambassador, you'll get a job, buddy. Okay, you can have whatever you like.
I bet. I will not hold out any hope for a diplomatic posting anytime soon. But anyway, we've had a great discussion today, and I want to wrap up with this one. So let's listen to Joe Rogan on one of his podcasts this week. Said he invited that Pierre guy onto his podcast, but he declined. Let's listen to this.
It kind of reminds me of what happened in Canada with the truckers.
Yes.
I mean, they froze their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Or people who donated to them.
Yeah. People who donated to them got their bank accounts frozen.
How insane.
Insane. And then that same party just won again. Good job, Canada.
Oh, my God. If they didn't have good bear hunting, I would never go there.
I do have to say, I offered to have that Pierre guy come on the podcast.
Really?
He didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Thought it was too problematic. Or whatever. Jordan told me, I forget what he said, but they were telling him not to do it. Like his advisors were telling him not to do it. Hey, dumbass.
If they can't talk.
Hey, dumbass. Okay. I think it would have been problematic for Pierre Poilievre to go on. I think they made the right call on that. What do you think, Chris Day?
If that was the pitch letter, dear dumbass, come on my podcast, Pierre guy.
Dear Pierre guy, you dumbass, why don't you come on my podcast?
Can't imagine why he would say no. The goal of any election campaign, earned media or media that you do, is to grow the base and get people who are considering voting for you that aren't already to vote for you. And I don't see going on Joe Rogan contributing to that. Anyone who may listen to Joe Rogan in Canada probably was already predisposed to voting for Pierre as opposed to growing the tent. And I would say the person who did go on as a political leader to Joe Rogan's podcast, Maxime Bernier, won 0 seats. So take from that what you will.
Okay. Yeah, in about a minute or so left here, Tim. What do you think about that decision?
Yeah, let's hang out with the guy who thinks ivermectin works, his best buddies with Aaron Rodgers. Like, what Pierre should have done, is canceled that, but he should have done more shows like yours than others. He does one here in Ottawa, Bill Carroll's, fair enough, but what he should have done is what they're doing now. Never mind Joe Rogan. Get out, as Stephen Harper did at the end of that 2006 campaign that he won, and done all the local media across the country. Never mind Rogan. As Chris said, they've got those votes.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you so much for the conversation today, guys. All the best. We'll speak soon.
Take care, Ambassador Snow.
Bye-bye.
We look forward to our visit.
I like the sound of that. I do like the sound of that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye. I'll even take the consul job in New York. I hear that's a pretty sweet gig. I'm Rob Snow. That's our Newsday panel with Tim Powers from Summa Strategies and Senior Vice President at Hill & Knowlton, Chris Day. Our Newsday panel is coming up. No, Talkback is coming. That was the Newsday panel. Talkback is coming up next. Get it together. Ambassador Snow. We'll be right back.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It is 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're going to talk about jobs. Jobs for now, jobs for the future. We're taking a break today, honest to goodness. We're taking a break from all the political talk. We've had our fill of that. We have had our fill of that, and we suspect that you have too. So today we're not going to talk about the election. We're not going to talk about Donald Trump or Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre or Danielle Smith or Western separation or any of that stuff. We have been talking about that stuff for weeks on end. So for our own mental health, maybe yours too, we need a bit of a break from that. So we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit lighter today. We want to talk about jobs. And here's how we kind of want to frame it. And we're hoping that you'll give it some thought and then give us a call. Our call-in line, phone's available right now. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Here are some questions for you to consider. If you were to offer some career advice to a young person, say someone in high school, what career advice would you give them? What's a good job now? What's a good job now? And not only that, but what do you think will be a good job in the future? If you were to offer some career advice to a young person, maybe one of your own children, say someone in high school, what career advice would you give them? Go do this. This would be a good job for you. What is that? We keep hearing about the trades, for example, keep being told, go into the trades, go into the trades. You'll never be out of work if you go into the trades. I mean, is there something to that? Is that true? What do you think about that? 1-833-668-2577. What's a good job now? And what would be a good job in the future? Now, here are a few more questions for you. Now, this one is more for older people like me. If you could go back in time, if you had a mulligan in life, if only, if only. Regrets, I've had a few. If you could go back in time and talk to that younger version of yourself, what career advice would you give to that younger version of yourself? If you could go back and talk to that high school version of yourself and give that younger version of yourself some pointers on a career, what would you tell yourself? Oh, so much I could say about that. And here's another question for you. How well do you think the education system in this country, public schools, colleges, universities, how is the education system doing in this country to prepare young people for the job market? For example, if you have any experience with hiring young people, or if you work alongside young people right out of college, right out of university, do you find young people are, for the most part, work ready? What I would call work ready. Do you find that young people today have the skills to be good employees and to be good co-workers? How well do you think the education system is doing in preparing our young people for the workplace and the workplace of the future? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. A lot to consider there, I know, but we're really interested in hearing your opinion today. We hope you'll share, your thoughts, your experiences. Among the reasons we wanted to talk about this today is because I hear it all the time. There's going to be great disruption in the labor market in the coming years. And a big reason for that disruption will be because of AI. artificial intelligence, AI. And we have been told, some might say we have been warned, that there are jobs that exist now that aren't going to exist for very much longer because of AI. But also with the growth of AI, with the advances in AI, there will be all kinds of new job opportunities, career opportunities that will be created. But millions and millions of people could be doing totally different kinds of work than they used to just years ago. Now, I don't know if all of that is true. I don't know if it's just hype, from Silicon Valley that told us the metaverse was going to be the next big thing. But we have been told we have to get ready. We have to get ready for a brave new world, for a brand new reality, and a completely different kind of workforce because of AI. We're told, for example, all kinds of clerical jobs could disappear. Assembly line workers, warehouse workers will be replaced by automation and robotics. Most of the fast food work, retailing sectors, jobs in those spaces could disappear. How much longer are we going to need truck drivers if the trucks are going to drive themselves? Are accountants going to be a thing of the past? And the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But at the same time, it's a technological disruption that will create new career opportunities for people who can really understand and appreciate how all of this works. And we'll need more data scientists and software developers and people who know language models and content creators. And some of the promoters, some of the evangelists of this technology are predicting a short time frame for this. We're talking 5-6 years. So it's either going to be very frightening or very exciting. I guess it will depend on where people are in life, what kind of skills they have, what kind of careers they've had. Some jobs will be gone. They won't exist anymore. New lines of work, new professions will be created. So this is one of the reasons why we want to talk about this topic today of jobs. Jobs. If you were offering career advice to a young person right now, what career advice would you give them? What would you say? Look at this. What is that? What's a good job now? And will be a good job in the future. And if you could go back in time, talk to that younger you, what career advice would you give yourself? And how well is our public education system doing at preparing young people for today's job market and the job market of the future? Share your thoughts. We'd love to hear your opinion on this topic today. Jobs. Good jobs for today. Good jobs for tomorrow. Your advice, please. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called us before, just mention that to us and we'll make your call a priority. This is Talkback on News Radio. We're talking about jobs today here on Talkback, jobs and careers. If you were to offer some career advice to a young person right now, what career advice would you give them? What would you tell them to look at? What's a good job now? What do you think a good job will be in the future? If you could go back in time, have a do-over, talk to that younger you. What career advice would you give yourself? Hey, do this. How well do you think our education system is doing at preparing our young people for the job market, either the job market of today or the job market of the future? Weigh in on that if you want. Let's go to Dale, who is in Halifax. Hello, Dale.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yeah. Hi, Dale. How are you?
I'm doing well.
That's good. It's great to hear from you today. If you were to offer some career advice to a young person, what advice would you give them?
Well, I have a son who's final year of high school, and I've been offering him advice over those high school years. And I've been telling him that the most important thing to look at is work-life balance and what type of life you want to have. If you want to have a family, you have to make sure that you have enough time, for family life. And unfortunately, my younger self, I didn't really think about that. I've spent most of his life, working, 60, 70 hours a week, right? And so, it's, if you're going to, if you want to have a family, I'm the product of two teachers.
Okay.
And, I had a great childhood, and I sometimes think that I, kind of cheated my son out of things because I just wasn't around as often as I should have been. And so if I was to him to go into education, become a teacher, which would have an awesome work-life balance.
Okay.
Enabling him.
Yeah. Right. And what does he think of that?
Well, it's one of his he's one of his options. He's thinking about becoming an electrician. He wants to be, possibly an engineer. Something.
Right.
He's more wants to be more hands-on, I guess. But
hands-on, tactile or what have you. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
right.
I mean, it's all.
Maybe he could teach industrial arts, what we used to call industrial arts back in my time.
Yes,
the best of both worlds.
They call it here now.
Yes.
But he, go become an electrician and then do a BEd and teach in the school system.
Very interesting.
So,
okay. Yeah.
But that's
become a
the advice
teacher.
that I would.
Become a teacher. Okay. All
become
right.
a teacher, or choose a career that has, they guarantee that you have a work-life balance.
Work-life balance. Yeah. Very good advice, actually. Thank you. I'm just going to jump in because we've been waiting for this breaking news, and now it has been revealed. The new pope has been elected. It is Robert Prevost, an American, and the first American pope in history, and he will be known as Pope Leo XIV. Speaking just moments ago to the crowd in St. Peter's Square. We have some audio of it. Let's listen to this here.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
Yeah. Prevost, Cardinal Prevost, Robert Prevost from the United States will be known as Pope Leo XIV. So look, I just wanted to fit that in there. That is, of course, a huge breaking news story, the top news story right now. We have a new pope elected on the second day of the conclave in Vatican City. We'll stop here, be right back, take more of your phone calls.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Jobs, careers, that's the topic for the day. Jennifer in Calgary is up next. Thanks for waiting, Jennifer. You're on the air.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Hi. Just calling. I use a little bit of humor in my life, and I would say the two occupations I would really encourage kids to go into are, there's two things inevitable in life, death and taxes. Okay. So maybe mortuary science and accounting might be great.
Okay. All right. Okay.
but not only that, your other part of the question is, do the schools prepare our children for occupations? Yes. And something we've really been advocating for in early childhood or in the childhood sector is to really, really offer some more of these trades like early childhood certification in the schools. So by the time these children graduate, they are ready to step into the workforce for those kids not going on to university. They have a level, they have a certification so that they can go into the job force. I'm a huge advocate of trades in schools.
Okay. Do you find, David and I were talking about this today. For example, I'm a child of the 80s. When I was going to school, the trades were kind of frowned upon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was almost like
and David says the same thing. And David is much younger than me. Let's just put it that way. But he said, as recently as 10 years ago in the school system, the trades weren't really promoted. And in fact, I think the attitude was the same. They were kind of frowned upon, not promoted.
Sure.
So do you think that attitude is changing now?
Definitely.
Yeah.
In BC, I've heard too that, I have a friend whose daughter has gone into to be an electrician, and the province of BC has paid for her schooling, her clothes, her tools, everything needed to go into that trade. It'd be great. I don't know how Alberta stands on that, but I have a son who's going into welding, loves welding, and there's really at the high schools, there's one in our area that he would actually have to quit the school he goes to learn that trade, and he can't even get into the program because there's such a huge wait list.
Isn't that something? Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah,
good to
you're
hear
welcome.
from you.
Have a great day.
Yeah. David, don't you know somebody who does underwater welding?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's my girlfriend's brother. Yeah.
And that guy goes all over the world doing jobs, right?
All over the East Coast, but certainly
All over
there's
the East Coast,
there's opportunities all the way up and down the Eastern Seaboard. There's always enough work.
Like always busy, right?
Yeah, as much as
Always
he wants
busy.
to work, there's always crews looking for guys.
Isn't that
Or
something?
girls.
Underwater welding. Like how exciting would that be? Sounds so adventurous. Lee is up next in Calgary. Hello, Lee.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Lee. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I have two sons, one 30 who's in the workforce and one 15 just finishing grade 10. And both of my boys, first and foremost, it was find something that you like to do. You don't have to love it, but you like to do it. So it's not a chore to work.
Okay.
And trades all the way.
Yeah.
I mean, my oldest
And are they
is
into
very
that?
successful. Well, my oldest, he went to be a DET. He's now in the military, and he's extremely happy with that. And my youngest is in the most amazing high school in Calgary by far, and he's taken welding. He's taking construction engineering. He's taking all of these trade courses, and now he's on a path for millwright. So to do all of them. And they have not only the courses, but they also have the RAP program where these kids can go out into the field that they want to be, earn credits towards their high school, which is going to help them get into the trade schools. We just, as parents, we need to quelch our expectations of our kids and listen more to them. Because, I mean, we all want our kids to be successful and lawyers and doctors and make lots of money and have a better life than us.
Sure.
But are we pushing our dreams on our kids, or are we listening to them and guiding them towards what they want to do so that they have a better quality of life than what we have?
Yeah, but as you say that, what pops into my head, say your 15-year-old told you wanted to be a YouTuber or a rock star or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Go for it?
I would say research it.
Or would you say stick with welding, son?
I would say research it.
Research it. Okay.
You research it, and you give me the reasons why you want to do this and how you're going to be successful at it. Show me the statistics of successful people out there.
Right.
How many people are YouTubers and how many of them are successful at it? Make
Very
them
good.
work for it.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
So,
Sound like a great mom. Thank you so much, Lee.
all right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bye-bye. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. The labor market. Jobs for today. Jobs for tomorrow. Give us some job advice.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Lots of questions about jobs today. If you were offering some career advice to a young person right now, what would you say? If you could go back in time, talk to that younger you, what career advice would you have given yourself? How do you think the education system is doing it? Getting young people ready for the workforce, for the job market today, for the job market of tomorrow. 1-833-668-2577 to Cambridge, Ontario. Alfonso up next on Talkback. Hello, Alfonso. Hi, Alfonso.
Hi there. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
That's good.
Appreciate you taking the call.
I appreciate taking your call as well. What would
I
you
listen
say?
to you pretty much every day on my way to work, to school. And as far as your topics are concerned, really touch home with me because I was self-employed for 31 years and had probably in the neighborhood of 75 co-op students throughout the years. from different schools in the Cambridge area.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I found a lot of the problems stemmed from students at home not having the proper education. Because parents wouldn't teach them some of the basic necessities, like sweeping a floor, keeping a shop tidy. So then they want to come into the co-op programs and they want to learn to be technicians.
Yes.
But when you're a technician, you also have to have organizational skills, because you want to cross your T's, dot your I's, do the job properly. And unfortunately, parents aren't teaching them that. Like they kind of just let them go by the wayside. So then they end up in school, and then teachers are kind of forced to try to, manage and educate them. But then they don't have some of the basic fundamentals, which my parents taught me. Both me, my brother, and my two sisters. So that's one issue that I found. The other comment, as far as trades, absolutely. I'm currently teaching at Conestoga now for the last 6 years. And definitely there's a huge shortage of tradespeople. It's been like that for the last 20 or so years, I found.
Right. And do you find interest is growing in the trades? Is interest growing in the trade?
Not really.
Not
it's
really.
Sad.
Interesting. Okay. Now you say, you want to be a technician. You're a technician? Is that right?
I'm an automotive and truck technician.
An automotive technician. Okay.
That's correct. And I ran an automotive repair shop for 31 years in Cambridge. And the biggest struggle was finding people that wanted to get into the trade, because it's technologically advanced, so you're constantly having to keep up. Equipment is a huge expense. And the pay rates are not what they should be for automotive technicians compared to your electricians, your plumbers.
Oh, really?
Electricians, plumbers don't need $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth of tools and a toolbox. They have a few hand tools, maybe some small toolboxes, maybe a vehicle, and they earn the same amount of money, if not in some cases more, which is kind of sad. Because
high overhead in the
huge overhead. Like I've got $100,000 in tools, and when am I ever going to have that compensated? Throughout the years, and any technician getting into it now, because now finally the government is helping them to some degree. You can expense your tools, but when I got into trade, you couldn't expense tools. Meanwhile, a violinist could expense his violin. So only.
But just to circle back on to say basic skills before they walked on to your shop floor, organization. They need to be better organized, you would say.
Yeah.
Better organized. Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting. Okay. Thank you. I got to run now, Alfonso. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Really interesting. To Rick in Dartmouth today. Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rob. Look,
hi, Rick.
I'm an old guy, so I've finished my work life. But I started out in university. I was a history major. I was going to be a teacher, but I learned how to play guitar and sing. And anyway, I ended up doing a 45, 50-year career doing that. But if anybody ever asked me now, would you recommend that? The answer would be no, squared.
Why not?
All of the work in that field has almost disappeared.
Really?
It's very, the people who do go out and play for a living are few and far between, and most people have like a good job and go out and play for fun. And that actually hurts the people who try to make for a living. For instance, I don't know about you, but in my job, we have lawyers, doctors, dentists, all kinds of these, high-paid, skilled professions who want to do my job because it's fun.
I know. It's funny that I was thinking about this morning, jobs I did as a younger guy, like a high school guy. So I knew a guy when I was in high school. He was a sound man, and he had, the soundboards and all the gear and the speakers, and he would do sound for live bands at gigs when they would do gigs. And he had a side business, a DJ business, doing wedding receptions, right? And he would hire kids like me. Okay, we've got, there's a wedding at the fire hall in North Sydney and they need a DJ. I need you to take these speakers down, play the tunes for the night. And so I would pick up odd jobs from him and I would do the DJing, and I really liked to do it. And I would pick in his brain, can you make any money doing this? And he told me, you don't want to go into this business, man. Like, this is a pain. You're hauling all this gear around at all hours of the night, late nights, early morning. You're dealing with drunk people all the time. It's a pain. It's a pain. And he said to me, Rob, if you want to make good money, learn how to fix stuff. Only he didn't say stuff. He said the other S word. Learn how to fix stuff.
Hey, I played the Dominion.
He said, if you can fix stuff, you'll never be out of work. And of course, I didn't follow that advice, and it said, I'm doing this. So there you go.
I played the Dominion pub up
in Ottawa. Yeah, the Dominion Tavern.
No,
yeah.
in Cape Breton.
Oh, in Cape Breton. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you were gone by then. But look, the second part of the story here is quickly. Our daughter graduated from high school in 2009, and we offered to send her to university. She said, "No, thanks. I'm going to take electronic engineering at the Nova Scotia Community College." And we certainly supported her in that. And then she took electronics technician. Then she got a job in an electrical company that made military-grade stuff. She became the quality person. And then she got headhunted 6 years later, and she's now works for a company that has brought up a bunch of U.S. companies. Worth it was a startup company 6 or 7 years ago. It's now worth $500 million right out of Dartmouth. It was incredible. So we certainly didn't pressure her to go to university and get a like her mother and I have arts degrees, sociology and psychology and history. It just didn't work. So I would recommend highly
that she's done well.
That people get into trades. Something that they enjoy. Electrician is a good one. We're always going to need electricians. Plumbers, we're always going to need plumbers.
Okay, got to run, Rick. Thank you for calling from Dartmouth today. We'll be right back. I think it's Kyle is up next in Cochrane. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Kyle. Go ahead.
So I'm a tradesperson right now. I've been an electrician for the last 20 years. And I got to say, it's a great trade. It's paid the bills. And I think what's most important that a lot of people miss is how little the schooling actually costs to get through it. I think that schooling's only about 2 to 3 months per year. They want mostly hands-on training, so you're actually making money most of the time you're going through your indentureship. And then you come out with only about, $2 to $4 grand of school bills versus what you're seeing out of most post-secondary institutions. I think I hear a lot of people say that they regret some of the degrees they carry because they have nothing to do with the careers they currently take. So, I'll advocate for the trades all day long. We have a shortage of workers and skilled workers, which brings me to my next point about what schools are doing to prep people to come out. The workers that we're seeing hit the force today are missing motivation, I guess. I think that they're all looking for the get rich quick sort of a payout, do a quick TikTok and make a bunch of money there. So when they hit the field, they don't really want to do the work that's required to become a success. So I think that schools could do a little bit better of a job motivating children that the hard work pays off. I think that there's been a movement of, we'll coddle and take care of you. You don't have to do much. Nobody's going to put you to work that hard. It'd be great if they were getting prepped to do the hard work. And
let me ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. Can I ask you a few 100%. Questions, Kyle? Okay.
100%.
So let's say you've got somebody in the 12th grade right now, and they're thinking, electrician, maybe that'd be a good. So how long does it take to become an electrician?
Well, in Alberta, it's a 4-year program. Essentially, you become a first-year indentured apprentice, and then you go through your 4 years of that, and then on your 4th year of school, you will get your red seal, and then there's also the interprovincial seal that you would get. So you become a journeyman and a red seal electrician with the interprovincial. That allows you to work across the country as a journeyman electrician. So it's 4 years. So
after year 4, I could put a sign on a business that says Kyle's Electrician Shop. whatever.
Well,
right?
in most places in the country, yes. In Alberta, we have a master's program, so you have to be a journeyman for 3 years and then apply for your master's. Once you have your master's, you can open your own business and pull permits.
I see. Okay.
So that it's a little bit different in Alberta, but yes, essentially in BC and Ontario, I believe that you just need to be a journeyman electrician. Once you hit that, you can start your own business and start doing the work that you want to do.
Now, somebody when they're first starting out, starting out in their career as an electrician, what kind of money can they make, would you say? Either by hour or whatever.
It's been a while since I've hit the indenture route. But I would say it was closer to just past minimum. I'd say it's about $20, give or take an hour to be a first year. And it goes up about $3 to $4 a year each time you do schooling. And I believe the journeyman going rate out in Alberta right now is about $42 an hour. So there's good money in it. You know, you can make six figures with this work with very little school debt. So I think that's why it's so attractive. And also, I think it's one of those last jobs that the robots and AI are going to try and take over, you know? So the work is going to be there for a very long time.
You're busy? You're busy?
Yes, extremely. Housing crisis, right? We're all in a housing crisis. We need more houses, and we have the workforce is retiring. Not enough coming in, and too many leaving. So it's more busy than we'd probably like, to be perfectly honest. And then just to your last point, you mentioned what do I wish I did? I wish I got into coding. You know, the robots, they need their brains written. So that would have been one thing. You know, I think that still will always have work is coding. Maybe invent an app and just
invent an app.
In Silicon Valley.
Candy Crush. Why couldn't I come up with Candy Crush? Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Bye-bye. All right. We'll stop here. It's Talkback. This is News Radio. Kevin in Nova Scotia up next on Talkback. Hi there, Kevin.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
Good. Well, I've been listening to your show, and I realize just what a wonderful life I've had, and what a wonderful career I've had, and you can still do it today. So I'll try to abbreviate it as quickly as possible. I was in grade 11 at Central Kings in Nova Scotia with the headset on, listening to Bob Dylan back in 1972. I was bored with school. I had $102.50 in the bank, and I said, well, I know nine chords on a guitar and know a few songs. Let's go to Vancouver on a train for $83. I went across Canada, and I strumming away there for 9 months. I was making pretty good money. I was working on about $40 an hour there on a good day, which was crazy for 1972. But anyway, I made a whole bunch of money. Long story short, I came back across Canada, long-haired hippie. You got to picture this, long red hair, pimples and freckles. I was probably the ugliest hippie ever. And this army guy said, you long-haired hippie, you couldn't get through boot camp. Well, by the time I got back to Halifax, I said, I'm going to prove that guy wrong. So off I went to the recruiting center, and I joined the Canadian Forces. And the only thing I knew about joining the Canadian Armed Forces, make sure your uniform's blue or you're going to join the Air Force, because the Army trades and Navy trades sucked back in the day. But my career was wonderful. You know, I started out as a technician. I saw Top Gun in the mid-'80s. I decided I wanted to go air crew, did that. You know, I can say I've been in the airspaces of 137 countries, and I've wandered around 60 of them. And, you know, my life has been an amazing experience. I've been able to do additional education and night school correspondence. You know, there's the university programs available. There's over 150 trades you can get in. You're fully paid, fully qualified. All your equipment is paid for. You don't get a great salary, but there's always other things you can do to subsidize your salary. You know, and I spent 28 years doing that. I got out with a defined benefit pension about 25 years ago, and since then I've renovated old historic homes, and I bought and sold boats and cars and all kinds of things. And I did a lot of traveling, and my pension wasn't good enough to live on, but it subsidized the life that allowed me to retire. Now I'm almost 70. And I just think the Canadian Armed Forces, especially the Royal Canadian Air Force, it's a wonderful opportunity. They're talking about a massive pay increase for them. They're trying to recruit people. The lifestyle is not really disciplined. You have more discipline in your own life than the Air Force puts on you. I mean, you got your job to do, and you got to take orders. But it was a wonderful life. And when I look back, and in retirement years, I've been able to do everything that I wanted to do, and I was burnt out at 28 years in. It was time to leave. I was flying search and rescue, and I was burnt out.
Right.
So that
But
was
you
my,
would encourage
that's
young
my
people to
career.
consider a career in the armed forces.
Yeah, I would. And
Really?
and you, talk
Because
about
they're
the guy
having a
who's
heck of a
talking about
time
making.
trying to recruit people, So
I know. And for
Yeah.
me, I was the last person. I was voted out of 172 people, the most likely not to make it a career. But what happened to me, I discovered I love to learn, and they can constantly provided new opportunities to learn new stuff. And I took advantage of that. And yeah, at the end, it was time to go. They'll work you pretty hard. But the job that I was doing in search and rescue on the east coast of Canada was incredibly satisfying, incredibly fulfilling, and you felt like you were doing a job that was really essential at the time. So I left with a wonderful feeling, and
that's
the
good.
pension and stuff like
You
that.
should make
I tell the guys.
You should make the recruiting videos, sir. You sound like a great
I think the
spokesperson.
last thing I do want to mention is music. I began with music, and now I'm back into it. And
Good for you.
I'm not going to make a living at it, but I'm having a lot of fun doing that now. So
that's a great
good
story.
luck to everybody looking for a career.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, great story. Be right back with another full hour.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Jobs for today, careers for tomorrow. That's our topic. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. We have been asking if you were to offer some career advice to a young person right now. What kind of career advice would you give them? What would you tell them to look at? What's a good job now? What do you think will be a good job in the future? Let's get right back to the phone. Some people have been waiting quite some time. Brandon, up next in Halifax. Hello,
Hey there,
Brandon.
Rob. How's it going, bud?
I'm fine, Brandon. How are you?
I'm good. So
That's good.
I'm actually quite a young person myself. I'm only 28 years old.
Right.
So I started in the HVAC and refrigeration trade. I'm a licensed technician.
Okay.
So of course I started when I was 20 in the trades.
Right.
And I find this topic's been a really important thing to get to younger people because I do a lot of service calls, right? So I speak to a lot of different people. And, of course, most of them have younger people that are still deciding or figuring out what they want to do in life. And I want to say, of course, the HVAC and refrigeration trade is one of the best trades you can get into.
Why is that?
Just because of the it's pretty much recession-proof. Everybody always needs heating, cooling. Your washing freezers or coolers always need to be fixed. There's no AI is going to be taking over that. That's for sure.
Right. So most of the work that you do, is it like commercial work, residential work, both? What's that, sir?
Yeah, I used to. Not anymore. I used to work. I've actually been on quite a few big major projects. I've actually worked down in for the Churchill project for Muskrat Falls and stuff like that. Yeah. So I've been in work down there. That's actually when I first started in my career. And that's one of the things actually I kind of want to point out. Because I find a lot of people also don't understand with the trades, there's other avenues you can go that's not just hands-on, right? For example, when I went down to Muskrat Falls, I was actually doing automation controls, right, for the HVAC system. So that involved me just sitting at a computer, monitoring systems and testing different hot water valves, cooling valves, right, for the
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot of programming and testing. So, and that's just one part of the trade, right, for the HVAC and refrigeration. There's also chillers, which, for these big humongous buildings, you got heat pumps, of course. Everybody's been talking about those lately.
Oh, yeah, heat pumps, yeah.
Very popular. And coolers.
Yeah.
I find a lot of the time people just think when they think of the trades themselves, they just think of, you're just hands-on, right?
Yeah.
Like you're back-breaking labor, out in the sun all day. So I find that's one thing we got to teach a lot of younger people. And usually when I talk to them, I kind of, like I said, I'm only 28 myself.
Yeah. So let me ask you: is this something that was always of interest to you? How did you decide on this as a career?
So when I was first starting, of course, I didn't know what to do. I think that's like a lot of people.
Sure.
But actually, my father, at the time, he was actually he's an automotive mechanic. He owns his own business back from my hometown.
Yeah.
But he, of course, has had some he was watching the trades and seeing how the world was going. And one of the things he suggested to me at the time was refrigeration, right? HVAC and refrigeration.
Okay.
He's seen how the world was kind of going, especially with heat pumps at that time. That's about 10 years ago, of course. And that's pretty much when all that stuff was kind of blowing up. He said to me at the time, it's like, if you get this job, you'll never be out of work, right? And for the same things I just said earlier, right?
Yeah. Recession proof. Yeah.
Well, pretty much, right? So everybody's going to need a freezer or cooler or heat pump.
Yeah.
When people lose their cooling, they want somebody there quickly.
They want somebody there. Sure. Yeah.
So,
okay.
And once, of course, so when I went into it, I still wasn't sure at the time. But, me and him had a lot of talks and stuff like that. And I think, and that's the other thing too with the trades, is that at least if you figure out you don't like them, at least you get into a good paying job quite quickly.
Okay. And how long was the course? How long was the course to do?
Well, my course, the course I did was a 2-year course. So
2-year course.
That allowed me, they gave me basically 1,800 hours, which you need 7,200 hours to write your red seal. And in refrigeration, you're 4 blocks, right? At least here in Nova Scotia. So yeah, I got 1,800 hours at that, and I had my first 2 blocks completed for me, right? But in the trades themselves, and I've even seen now a lot of companies here in Nova Scotia, they're starting hiring people without even going to school, like help.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot now. There's a lot more now than there used to be, because one of the problems with our field is that we have a lot of apprentices. There's not a lot of licensed technicians, right? The writing the red seal exam for HVAC and refrigeration is, well, one of the hardest exams you could probably do, right?
Right. Okay.
Because of how encompassing it is, right?
So look, I'm going to have to wrap it up there, Brandon. I'm going to have to wrap it up there because I have to take some other calls. But I really appreciate your call today. I'm glad it's worked out well. You sound like it's gone very well for you. Thank you so much for your call. Let's go to Waterloo, Ontario. Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Lorraine. How are you doing?
Not bad. First time caller here.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to talk about the trades. I personally never got into one. I wish I would have. But my one son is doing the electrical trade right now. He's in an apprenticeship. And it has been like the best thing for him. He has had to put out any money really except for some tools. But he also got a couple of the bursaries through his high school to be able to pay for some of his tools.
So it's been a very inexpensive educational endeavor then.
Exactly. He went right for his grade 12. He did a 4-course co-op that took him into his apprenticeship, and he's been doing it ever since. He's in his 3rd year now, so he's done one stint of schooling, and now he's with a new company, and it's even better for him. He just loves it. And then I have my younger son who is going into grade 12 next year, and he's going to be doing the exact same thing, but I don't know if he'll do electrical. He's going to do probably.
Now, is it something that your son wanted to do, or did you kind of point him in that direction?
Nope. It's what they've wanted to do. They wanted to work with their hands. I know they say that some kids aren't hard workers. Not to toot my son's own horn, but he is a hard worker, and it has definitely paid off for him. He just got a $5 raise last week, so he is working really hard and doing really well.
He's doing better than me. Okay.
In 2 years, and he's only 20.
Great stuff. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you for being a first-time caller and jumping in on the conversation today. Great to hear from you. We have to stop here, however. To Kevin, first-time caller calling from Calgary today. Great to hear from you, Kevin. Hi there.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, Kevin. Thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I'm 71 years old, and when I was a kid, we had trade schools.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives the kids the opportunity to go in and, go hands-on every trade there was. And I'd like to see the government get back to that, because a lot of the kids today, they get into a trade that they end up don't want to be into.
Okay. Now tell me a little bit more about how these trade schools operate.
Well, the trade school was you had home ec, and you had
Right. Yeah.
welding. You had.
Was it part of high school or was it after high school?
Yeah, in the high school area.
In the high school. Okay.
Yeah, but I find now when the kids come into the workplace, the companies have to learn when a kid makes a mistake, instead of getting onto the kid, to say, oh, here, and show them how to do it. I've always been a person that says hands-on is the best way of education.
Okay.
But I'd like to, if they got back into that, like I say, as you go through that trade school, you take different courses, and you get hands-on. Then hey, I want to take this job.
Right. Yeah.
But,
is that what you did in your life?
A little more lax as far as the education, other than like SAIT and all that, eh?
Right. Is that what you did in your life, Kevin? Did you go into the trades, sir?
Oh yeah, I've done tons.
Tons, yeah.
I've been I was a boiler maker for years.
Right.
And I'm a welder, a fitter, but I never ever did get like a full trade on it.
Right. Okay. You were a jack of all trades, so to speak.
I think it was in 1974.
Right.
They changed. They finally brought welding and fitting into a trade. And we were all supposed to be grandfathered, but it never happened. Eh?
Okay. Well, Kevin, thank you for your call. It's great to hear from you today. I'm going to move along and fit some more calls in here. Let's go to Kitchener. Rob is in Kitchener. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm good, Rob. Thanks. What's your opinion here?
I'm 7 months into retirement. I spent 40 years working in the machining industry for auto parts.
Okay.
The biggest issue we had for the last 10, 12 years was our skilled trades, electrical and mechanical. So if they get into trades like that, or even a lot of our jobs went into automation, so some type of automation technician would be a wonderful area to proceed in.
Okay.
But the most important advice I could give to anybody right now that's looking to go somewhere right out of school is to get a financial planner. Work towards your retirement so you don't end up living off government pensions alone.
Well, very good advice. Yeah. Very good advice.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Well, thank you for your call. And why don't we stop right here? Because if we bring somebody on the line now, they'd only have about 30 seconds. So we'll stop, then we'll go to Red Deer and maybe even take a call from Texas today. Yes, it's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about jobs and careers today. If you were giving career advice to a young person, what career advice would you give them? Lots of great suggestions. Lots of people recommending the trades, David. Lots of people recommending the trades. I'm not surprised to hear that. Great demand for the skilled trades, of course. Lots of talk about that. But I think about, I've been in this trade, radio broadcasting. This is my 26th year now, traditional radio broadcasting. And it has evolved, of course, over the years. And this show is podcast every day and is very internet heavy, of course, now. But the program that I took, David, to get into the radio business, they don't even offer that anymore.
Yeah, they just canceled it this year.
Yeah, but not only at the college the community college I went to, but at several community colleges. No more. They don't teach radio broadcasting anymore.
Yeah.
Now you are an instructor, part-time instructor at a community college in Ottawa, Algonquin College in Ottawa, and you're teaching in the journalism program.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's right.
So, it's no secret to anyone. There are some aspects of journalism that are doing very well. Of course, the traditional newspaper business not doing very well. Some local news not doing very well. But people are predicting the demise of journal to journal. I think it's just evolving. It's changing. It's different. It'll be different in the future. Like when you're with these young aspiring journalists, like every week. I mean, what kind of jobs do they think they're going to get? I mean, like, what do they see for themselves at careers?
You know, it's funny. A lot of them don't necessarily think they're going to end up in the news business. Right. They're thinking about transferable skills. A journalism program teaches you how to communicate very well, teaches you how to write very well. So there's lots of applications for those sorts of things. But generally, a lot of people thinking broadcasting is the most immediate way to get into the news industry, just because the newspaper business is in a bit of a death spiral. Let's be honest. I mean, without government support, it might not be there at all. But that's aside. But
that's just the way it is.
Lots of people curious about traditional broadcasting, but podcasting as well. There's still lots of opportunities there.
Yeah, that's why, like, when they canceled this broadcasting program that I took, that I was speaking like to some senior people, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't really understand why they're doing that when, like, everybody wants to be a podcaster. Like, you know, everybody's doing podcasts these days. It's so popular." But yeah, that's interesting, Dave. Very interesting. Let's take a call from Marion in Calgary. Marion.
Hi, Rob. How are you? Long-time listener, big fan.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I run a little retail pet store in Calgary. So I deal almost exclusively with hiring 18 to 30-year-olds, and across the board, no matter whether they're part-time to students that are moving on to something else, which is fine, every single person who comes through my doors lacks communication skills, whether it be face-to-face or on the phone, because they're always texting or snapping or Insta, right?
Right.
And they lack the ability to extrapolate problem solving, right?
And what do you mean by that? Like, give me an example of that. What do you mean?
So an example of that was I had a young lady who came to me as an 18-year-old, and she hated talking to people, and we worked with her. I, in fact, promoted her to a supervisor where she had to deal with people who were upset often if they weren't happy with their purchase or for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
She's now a NICU nurse, and I ran into her the other day, and she said that learning to deal with upset people in retail helped her so much when she had to deal with upset parents who have children in a NICU, because that's a skill that extrapolated into something else.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. What kind of career did she go into? I'm sorry.
She's a NICU nurse. So
what is that?
Babies in hospital.
Oh, I see. Neonatal. Okay. Yes. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I've never heard that term before. Okay.
That's okay. Sorry. It's just that learning to deal with upset people is a really valuable skill, because nobody wants to be in conflict. But it doesn't have to be a conflict. And those are the skills that no matter what job you go into, you need to know. You need to know how to deal with an upset coworker or an upset client or something. And
there's going to be conflict.
I encourage people to do leadership skill courses. I encourage them to do communication skill courses, because no matter where you go, trades or accounting or nursing, that is something that will always extrapolate across the board for you.
That's such great advice, Marion. Thank you so much for your call. I appreciate your call today and for being a first-time caller. Let's go to Lethbridge today. John is in Lethbridge. Thanks for waiting, John. Hi, John.
How are you?
Good, Rob? John. Thanks. Go ahead.
First-time caller.
Appreciate that.
And I've been in the trades, the electrical trade for 40 years. And I started when I was 18, putting steel towers up for 230,000 volts. In the wintertime, you get laid off. Got laid off, went back to school, met my wife, got married, had 4 daughters. Then in 1973, still looking for a job, I was started up at the Bruce as a first-year apprentice, and back then they called you were indentured.
Yes. So we've heard that term today.
Then you serve your 5 years, which takes a lot longer because you aren't always working at because you're on contract. And through the years, you branch off. Like I went into the nuclear industry. I was in there for 20 some odd years at the Bruce, and also at Darlington. Also did maintenance.
Right.
So
So for people who aren't aware, when he says the Bruce, you're talking about the Bruce nuclear facility in Ontario and the Darlington. These are the big nuclear facilities, nuclear power facilities in Ontario. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And being from a small town where you have just small industry, to go into these plants where you're at awe to see the size of them. And it kind of gets into your blood working on all this equipment like high voltage, working in the nuclear industry. And also you move on to different things. And I've been in this for almost 50 years, and I've enjoyed it. It's been that's where a lot of people should be looking, because they need people there all the time. They can't get enough.
Right.
And it takes almost 40 years to learn stuff.
Wow.
You never ever stop learning.
Never stop learning. Isn't that something? Yeah.
Never.
And now, I mean, they just announced today they're going into the small modular reactors. Going to build one in Ontario. It's going to be $22 billion. You can imagine the time and the people that they'll need to work on something like that. So, that's something else.
Rob,
that's kind of
part of it. I kind of know, but it's not the time to talk about it.
Right. But we can talk about that another day. But very interesting, John. We've got to run. We're a little tight on time. SMRs, whether they're the next big thing, that's a conversation for another day, I think. Let's stop here, and then we'll take some more calls when we come back.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been having a great talk today about jobs and careers, advice for young people. David, if you could jump on here, David, just on the small modular reactors, because you're going to be doing some talk. David's going to be hosting tomorrow. I'll be away tomorrow. I got to go to Montreal, but it's $22 billion for these SMRs. It's not one of them. It's just not one. It's four. Is that right?
Four of them. Yeah.
It's four of them. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to.
And they're building them onto the existing infrastructure at Darlington
in Ontario.
So I figured that would probably make it a little cheap. Nuclear energy is not cheap to build.
No, it's not cheap.
No two ways.
No, it's not cheap. No. Nothing is cheap, Dave, when it comes to big electricity generation, whether it's a hydro dam or a nuclear power plant, or a wind farm for that matter. Let's go to Travis is in Calgary, also a first-time caller. Hi, Travis.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Travis. I'm good. Thanks for calling.
Definitely appreciate the show and appreciate how patient you are with people. Been listening for a while. I just wanted to give you a bit of insight. I worked in the electrical trade for 20 years. I'm a master electrician now. But I can definitely, I think my advice to some people, I know there's maybe a shortage of trades, but my experience has been, I would actually advise against it, because in my experience, while it's been okay, for instance, I left Calgary to work a little bit closer to home 12 years ago. And at that time, the journeyman rate for an electrician was about 38 to $40 an hour. I was getting paid 40. And I think the journeyman rate right now is almost at the exact, 40. You might be getting 41. I'm not sure.
Oh, really? So
I run my own business.
The pay rates haven't gone up very much.
No, and actually a few years ago, before we kind of had this housing boom again in Alberta, I would say they actually went down. And so I think a lot of people get into the trades early, but then they end up leaving. I've only ever worked, luckily I've never been laid off. I think that's always also in the back of everyone's mind when it starts to get slow. It's who's the next guy getting laid off? I definitely experienced lots of guys getting laid off, but
right.
I've only ever worked for one company who's offered benefits. A lot of times you're overworked, working long hours. Never had a pension, don't have a pension right now. So it's on me to kind of save up for myself.
Plan for that. Right.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I started my own business. And if I wouldn't have done that, I think I would have been looking to get out of the trades.
Really? Okay. Wow.
You're
things
like,
to
for
think
me,
about.
Yeah, 70, you're $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And it's, if you're on one income, that's a struggle. So,
Right.
That's I've always told people, like, go get business administration, something that you could, a lot. The other thing too is you wear your body out, and then when you can't work, then what do you do?
Right?
I've given the people, young guys, advice, like, go get business administration, something where maybe then go get a trade, but then as your body starts to wear out and everything else, then maybe you can move into an office role, doing something else. But
right.
I don't know. It's tough. I don't envy the younger generation in Canada right now. That's for sure. But that's just my take.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, Travis. Thanks for being a first-time caller today. Yeah, kind words from you as well. Andrew in Calgary up next as we talk about career advice today. Hi, Andrew.
Hey there, Rob. Happy Thursday to you.
Good, Andrew. Thank you. Go ahead. What do you think?
My 2 cents. I try and keep my advice simple because kids have a lot of pressure on them. And if you remember middle school, you're not really thinking about your future anyway.
Right.
So I encourage children to just try everything. Middle school and high school, there's a lot of opportunity to try a lot of different things. So my advice is to try everything. Try the sewing, try the baking, try the electronics, try the shop class, try all of it. And find out what you think you're good at and what you really enjoy to give you some direction. And the other thing is find out about money, money management, who's making it, where is it kept, and how to protect it from the government. And because they might want to go into their own, start their own business one day with whatever they choose. So those 2 things would be my advice to kids growing up today. And hopefully that'll, kind of help them out when they finally graduate or do post-secondary, whatever.
Yeah. That is such great advice. One of the questions we were asking today is the education system doing a good job preparing young people for the job market? Maybe, when it comes to money and money management, for example, in Ontario, they're going to make financial literacy, for example, part of the curriculum. Maybe there should be more. They never talked about that when I was in school. Never talked about it at home either, for that matter. It's just something.
My son had a small class similar to that in junior high, and they taught them about the history of money and how was it first invented, and how does that help them?
Yeah.
Very strange.
Hey, it's all very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, great. Try everything. That's great advice. And David, I think, is going to be the last call here. David. Hello, David.
Oh, wow. I get the honor. That's awesome.
Yes. Last say of the day. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Yeah, no, I was listening to that previous call, Andrew, there. And yeah, no, I agree with him. Like, when I was a younger guy, I wish I had a little bit more financial literacy, and thank God I got my wife now. But she helps me out.
That's good.
But yeah, no, like, to add to jobs and stuff, I've been kind of jumping around and stuff, but I've got in with, I work for municipalities. So there's lots of ways to move around, more like opportunities than I thought there could be. And I got like truck drivers licenses and snow plows and all that. So there's also options for trades as well. So like you can get yourself into like a municipality, region, government. That's definitely a way to go. And especially nowadays too, with like just what's going on, you can get yourself into there's so many different trades that you can pick up on and different skills that you can pick up on. And there's always somebody there to help you as well. So like I've been really guided over the last while there with everybody at work, and it's been a great experience. So if you can dabble into the municipalities and get your foot in, you get a pension as well. You can start getting into those pensions, dabbling in healthcare. And my wife's a nurse, so it's a nice little combination between me and her now. But if you get into government, you're golden, right? So
yeah, that's good advice. whenever I used to bump into people when I was living in the city, I don't live in the city anymore. But when I was living in the city of Ottawa, I would get in a cab or something like that, or somebody have a conversation. You know, I'm looking for a job. You're like, where would be a good place be to look for a job? I always used to say, go apply to the city of Ottawa. Like they're always, you're looking for people in all kinds of different jobs. Pays well. You're in a union. You get a pension. There's room for growth. You know, like it is. You know, I'm not a big government guy myself.
Well,
I would prefer smaller government, but I'll tell you, if you do get in, like especially you know in the municipal government, for example, you can make a good career of that. You really can. Yeah, and I know lots of people who worked their whole life for like the city of Ottawa, and they loved it. They really liked working for the city. Thought it was a good place to work.
Some of the more senior guys and girls that, you know, they've said nothing but the best, right? That's like every time I talk to them about what's going on, it's like, you know, they treat you well. Like that's something to, you know, to think about when you're looking for a job, especially as a kid. And, you know, I wish I kind of looked at it before when I was back in high school. So that's my advice to people.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you.
Take care.
That was a great 2 hours of Talkback today. I really enjoyed that. A really nice departure from all the political chat we've been doing lately. We'll do more of that in the future. David will be your guide through Talkback tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday. It's a big news day today. We'll bring you right up to date. Next on News Radio